You're very welcome to Radio Espial. This is episode 79. We've a case and we're moving continents. This isn't an Irish case. This is not based in Ireland or the UK. We're moving to Los Angeles for this case. Before we begin, thank you all for your recent subscriptions, and you're very welcome if you're a new subscriber. This episode is very much a reflection of how we roll and how we do these timelines. On the timelines and the insider episodes, we do read all your comments. We try our best to get to them and reply. And thank you all again from the bottom of my heart. Brian will be with us later for the actual, when we get into the timeline, and we'll get on then to some conclusions and analysis. We have an awful lot to go through in this case with Elisa Lam. Let's start with our case summary. Elisa Lam, a 21-year-old Canadian university student from Vancouver, disappeared while staying at the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles in late January 2013. Her family grew alarmed when she failed to make her daily check-ins, prompting a police investigation that soon captured global attention. Surveillance footage released by the LAPD, the Los Angeles Police Department, showed Elisa behaving erratically in an elevator, pressing buttons, hiding in the corner, gesturing into the hallway, fueling intense speculation and widespread media coverage. After nearly 3 weeks of searching, her body was found in one of the hotel's rooftop water tanks following guest complaints about water pressure and discoloration. Now, this was a case that began as a missing person file and quickly spiraled out of control with the release of what was described as curious elevator CCTV. Sadly, it was also a case which almost destroyed other lives. Litigations would follow, and a wrongful death court case, and the emergence of multiple online true conspiracy communities and channels. To cast yourself back to 2013, this really was the explosion, particularly on YouTube, on other platforms of Reddit as well, of community true crime groups. Now, professing justice for Elisa, the whirlwind of global online sleuths had long lost the run of themselves, professing expertise on the truth. Of course, the words we've heard so often, the truth, far beyond their own remit. They had it all figured out within days. Of course they did. Everyone was wrong. It must be a law enforcement conspiracy, an evil ghost hunting situation, or a new rampaging serial killer loose in downtown Los Angeles. Take your pick. The circus, in this case, had truly come to town. Once again, the victim was lost in this case. The real facts and circumstances cast aside or simply ignored. And it certainly wouldn't be the last time. This is the real story and timeline of Elisa Lam and what lies beneath this case. Elisa Lam, Lam Ho Yi, to give her full Cantonese name, was born on April the 30th, 1991 in Vancouver, British Columbia, to parents David and Yina Lam, who had emigrated to Canada from Hong Kong. She grew up in a close-knit family with her sister Sarah. The siblings would often help out their parents, who owned and ran Paul's Restaurant in Burnaby. The restaurant specialised in home-style Canadian and Chinese Cantonese food. She excelled academically in high school and later attended the University of British Columbia. However, during this time, she found herself falling behind in studies, struggling to attain the academic level she had grown used to in high school. This led her to on and off bouts of depression, and by late 2012, she had not registered for classes for the following year, feeling she needed time out to figure out what she really wanted to do as a career. Just to explain, at the university, you essentially had semester or terms, term 1, term 2. I think term 1 was September through to November, December. Term 2 was January through to May. And she didn't register for classes from January to May of 2013. Now, she was an avid watcher of TV shows at the time, like the US Daily Show, Colbert Report, and Downton Abbey. Also going to the latest movies. She loved the series of Harry Potter books and, of course, the series of movies adapted from them. Her favourite book was The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Perhaps she didn't realise at the time, in her late teens, 16, 17, 18, but she was already showing strong signs of a positive acumen for writing and journalism. Elisa was described by friends and family as bright, introspective and creative, deeply interested in writing, fashion, photography and travel. She maintained an active online presence, particularly through her Tumblr blog, Nouvelle Nouveau, where she shared personal reflections, literary quotes and thoughts on her struggles with mental health. In her late teens, aged 17 to 18, Elisa had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression. Her medical records would later reveal she had experienced episodes of severe depression and mania, though she was generally functional and independent when her condition was well managed. Now, around this time, 2008-2009, Elisa is in 12th grade high school and active in school sports, cross-country running, but struggles to make friends on away trips and switches instead to volleyball, feeling it more a team sport and she might make more friends. But her hopes were dashed when she was brushed off by her coach and her teammates. In one term, she felt like her teammates and friends had abandoned her, and with that, the boys who might have an interest in her. She was prescribed several medications, including mood stabilizers and antipsychotics, and her family described her as responsible about maintaining her treatment plan. However, like many people living with bipolar disorder, she experienced fluctuations that influenced her judgment, mood and behaviour. Having taken a break from her term 2, as I said, January to May 2013, studies at the University of British Columbia due to her mental health challenges, she began expressing a renewed desire to explore, grow and gain independence. Her decision to travel to California in early 2013 was part of this effort. The solo trip would be a chance to see iconic places: San Diego, Los Angeles, Santa Cruz, San Francisco, and to prove to herself that she could navigate the world independently on her own terms. In her Tumblr blog posts, her writing often blended melancholy with optimism, showing a young woman searching for meaning and stability while confronting the realities of her mental health condition. Significantly, the trip was her first across international borders. Though her parents were first hesitant, they supported her decision as long as she checked in with them daily. Elisa agreed and kept her promise for most of that trip, regularly emailing or calling them. Elisa Lam's background is essentially to understanding the complexities of her case, not because it defines her, but because it highlights the vulnerabilities she may have faced while travelling alone. Her tragic death raised important questions about mental health, the pressures faced by young adults, the challenges of navigating unfamiliar environments, and the consequences of inadequate safety measures in public accommodations. But above all, Elisa's story resonates because she was a real person. A young woman with dreams, struggles, and a life cut tragically short. Brian, initial thoughts on our case summary and our case background just before we get into this timeline.
Hello Mick. Hello folks. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for all your kind comments and your support. Much appreciated. So yeah, mate, this is a good job on the case summary background. Lovely photo of Elisa Lam at the top. Heartbreaking case, really is, and delighted that you're presenting this one now. And just a quick note there. Her name was Lam Ho Yi there. A lot of people of Hong Kong extraction or Chinese extraction, they'll pick a name if they go move to an English speaking place. Even Chinese people and people from Hong Kong I've known have done that there. And sometimes it can be a direct translation, sometimes not. But that's where the Eliza would have come from there. Um, just a couple of points there. I think this is the classic. It's not so much a media circus as a social media circus, if you want to call it that. This case generated an awful lot of noise and an awful lot of very ill-informed commentary and unempathetic commentary and very ill-informed stuff and all the rest of it. So we're not going to dive down the rabbit hole of that, but that's just one point there. So like I said, it became almost a social media circus more than your standard media circus. I think the one of the sad points there. I mean, she had bipolar disorder, and I think which is can be difficult to manage. And fair dues, she oftentimes people get a lot, they get so much done in spite of it, and at times creative people as well. Oftentimes they can be very creative at their most creative when they're in the manic state as well, but then that's difficult for their personal lives as well. So just to note that, I think we just need to be clear as well on the, socially and geographically there. The part of Los Angeles that she was in was a rough part of town. Los Angeles isn't all, Hollywood and, Beverly Hills and,
No, no, no.
scooting down the Santa Monica Boulevard or the Pacific Highway with the wind rushing through your hair in a convertible. Los Angeles is parts of that. This was a rough part of town. I've been through parts of it myself. It's very, very poor areas. Went through East Los Angeles about 4 years before this tragedy happened, and there was riots in East Los Angeles the night before I was going through there. I mean, I literally saw big long food queues, people giving out food, not nicely made up parcels either,
Mm.
just plastic
Literally,
crates,
yeah, yeah.
literally giving out food, bits of bread and vegetables and so on, big long queues. I mean, it was really third world stuff in parts of this, but is where you have probably one of the wealthiest parts of the planet, and then a couple of miles away or less, you've got this extreme third world level poverty going on there as well. And I think where the Cecil Hotel was there is quite a very poor part of a rough part of Los Angeles there, a lot of homelessness and etc. there as well. So I think just geographically and socially where the area was there as well. So just say this was a very sad case. What should have been a great adventure for this talented young lady turned into an awful nightmare and tragedy.
Okay, so we're going to start, and throughout this timeline, you're going to hear the words of Elisa, and these are from her Nouveau Tumblr, and they're going to be interspersed throughout the relevant periods we go through the timeline. Now, this case, I want to stress, the actual incident year itself was 2013. We're actually going to start off in November 3rd, 2011. And this was around the time that Elisa Lam started her Tumblr blog. And she writes on November the 3rd, 2011, "The fact is, I am a good person. I have always been a good friend. I have always been a good sister, and in return, I have not been shown respect. I do not deserve this. No one deserves this." We're already getting a sense that there's things going on privately. We're going to move on to November the 4th. Eliza has started her Tumblr blog, and she writes again, "Seriously, life, do you think I am built of steel? I am human after all. I am just flesh. My skin can hold only so much together." November the 6th, 2011. "Right now, I am deliriously happy. My emotions, you are uncontrollable." Again, to emphasize, we're just seeing 3 posts in a short space of days. in the same year, and we're getting very varied swings, highs, lows. Just park that in your mind.
Over a 3-day period there.
Over a 3-day period. Now, we're going to move to the next year. This is the summer into the winter of 2012. Elisa was a meticulous planner, and she had spent many months prior to her trip saving money she earned at her parents' restaurant. Days and weeks carefully researching and mapping routes, and above all, building enthusiasm for what she hoped would be a transformative solo adventure. California represented a place of new beginnings. Sunlight, the culture, Brian talked about it in his trip there, independent exploration, and distance from the stressors that had shaped her previous year. So moving to October the 22nd, 2012, she's now in the process of planning that trip. From her Tumblr blog. A few good days followed by a week of sleeping. That is the pattern. That is the cycle, and that will repeat again and again. Maybe there will be a change every once in a while, but sheer willpower, no, I don't think it is. I have it in me anymore to put the effort in once knocked down. So again, we're getting a sense there's a bit of turmoil there going on. November 2012. I suppose that is the human condition. To feel so big, so important, but at the same time, to be just a flicker in the universe, and the struggle to come to terms with those two truths. I quoted that correctly. There has been documentaries that use that quote, and they actually used it incorrectly. That is the correct quote that she used. November the 13th, 2012. She writes once again. I suppose I have accepted the part of me that feels inadequate, so long as I know how it is useful and know that it makes me human, and know that is why I try to emphasize with people and why I feel emotions so strongly, why rejection and betrayal cut me so deeply. Again, I'm not going to intrude into Elisa's life and what might have been going on, but clearly there are touching stones within all of those quotes that suggest she's at home, and there are things going on, be it in her from her high school into college life, that there are things going on, maybe with her sibling, maybe with her parents, but there still are very clearly things going on. This is Thursday, January the 3rd. Now, this is significant because she's literally about to she's now within 2 weeks of traveling, two to 3 weeks of traveling. I talk to anyone and everyone, hoping for a person I can depend on, but no one wants to have someone else's problems thrust upon them and be suspected to hold them up. I get why. We're selfish people. We have our own issues to deal with. How could you possibly take on someone else's? When you've left high school and you're busy trying to become accomplished, what time do you have except for shallow, infrequent bursts of conversation with an acquaintance? Friday, January the 4th, the following day, again, Elisa posts a quote from the Mexican painter Frida Kahlo. I hope the exit is joyful, and I hope never to return. I'll read this last quote before we really start to get into the day-to-day business of this case. This was Monday the 21st, 2013, so she is literally days away from travelling. But I am so very full of love because last night was evidence that I do have amazing, beautiful things in my life, and even though everyone is busy and going off doing great things, they do care about me. I'm not a I think she meant professional, depressed person. I am so much more than that, and these people are my reminders that I am very lucky. Life is long and difficult, and people will always be stupid and complain, but it is worth it so long as you have special moments. There will be lots of these moments in the future, and there have been a lot in the past. So what if everything is shit and all the plans have gone to hell? If I ask for help, someone might even be willing to spare a hand. But Brian, I'm going to pause there. There's a lot going on there, isn't there?
Well, I mean, she speaks a lot of truth there. And
Yeah,
she hit a few nails on the head there, all right,
Yeah.
like with the interactions and that. So I
Yeah.
think, you know, so, but I think, yeah, you know, most normal people should be able to relate to a lot of that, like, you know,
Yeah.
I suppose she's at a kind of an age as well where, you know, she's come out of school, she studied a bit, she's trying to get up and running in her whatever she was trying to get up and running, and so are all of her, you know, her peers. So it's kind of, you know, just tricky times there as well, like.
And I chose some of those blog posts because on the one hand we had posts from a very tight period of days,
Yeah.
and then we had blog posts from, you know, almost a year after, and still it seems the same things are coming up. That she goes from frustration to hope and looking forward. This is Tuesday, January the 22nd.
Sorry, Mick, just to call out there as well, I think, like, I think even though she's posted a blog or whatever, like, you know, I think, you know, she's very much alone with a lot of this stuff as well.
Yeah.
As are a lot of people, I think, you know, she's very much alone with these troubles, like, and you know, just to call that out as well, like, you know, even though she's put up on a blog, she's
it's still, it's for her, it's her own personal sounding board coming back. And in fairness to her, at this point her blog has built up and she is getting feedback, and actually extraordinarily she's actually sharing her mental health issues, and she's actually giving what would seem relatively positive advice to people who are also sharing with her. So there's also in the comments, too much for this timeline, but there's also an awful lot behind these comments that are going on in the background as well, so it's worth saying that. So she's leaving all that. So Elisa left her parents' Vancouver home Tuesday, January the 22nd, 2013, with plans to first explore the American West Coast. Her first stop was San Diego, a city she documented enthusiastically online. She visited the famous San Diego Zoo, walked through Balboa Park, wandered through local bookstores, and enjoyed the coastal scenery. Elisa's social media posts from these days reflected her characteristic blend of introspection and sheer excitement. She shared pictures, quoted literature, and remarked on the sense of possibility she felt while travelling alone. Now on Saturday...
Sorry, just to call out there, folks, you know, if you just look at the map, like, Vancouver's just over the border into Canada from America. Then you have Seattle and Washington State south of it. Then into USA, you've Washington, Oregon, and all the way down to California. San Diego's at the bottom end of California, backs onto Mexico with Tijuana. Yeah. And then where she ended up, Los Angeles, would be north there again. Like.
So on Saturday, January the 26th, she arrives in Los Angeles. Now Elisa took an Amtrak train from San Diego to Los Angeles. She arrived during a period of sunny, mild weather, and the city was bustling with tourists, commuters and residents navigating the chaos of downtown Los Angeles. She checked into the Cecil Hotel, appealed to her primarily because of its affordability and its proximity to public transportation. The hotel stood at the edge of Skid Row, an area known for widespread homelessness, substance use and crime. Despite all her research, it seems very clear Elisa was unaware of the hotel's troubled history within the area. She saw it simply as a budget-friendly base during her stay in LA. Her initial reservation placed her in a shared room with two other female guests, a hostel-style arrangement common with many young travellers. She explored the surrounding streets, taking photographs and reading in nearby cafes. She continued to call her parents' daily, as promised, offering them cheerful updates on her adventures. Saturday, Sunday, January 27th through to the 28th of 2013. These are her initial 2 days in Los Angeles. In these 2 days, Elisa visited city landmarks, browsed shops, walked some extensive distances away from the hotel. Now, perhaps Elisa was becoming fatigued and a little overwhelmed. Her 2 roommates reported to hotel staff and management that Elisa behaved oddly in their company in the room, moving nervously, leaving curious and odd notes, and seemed somewhat anxious or confused. During the later police investigation, the 2 original roommates would state that unnerving notes were left on their beds by Elisa reading, "Go home, go away, get out." As a result, hotel staff moved her to a private room on the same hotel floor, the 5th floor. Employees recalled her as polite, soft-spoken and somewhat curious, but they too noted that occasionally she appeared removed and disorientated. On Sunday, January the 28th, she emailed her family, telling them she was enjoying Los Angeles, deciding not to specifically call them. While not unusual, particularly when she was travelling to locations during the day, it may have been a sign that all maybe wasn't quite as well, and an email could have concealed any outward distress a phone call might have revealed. Now, on Monday, January the 29th, from her blog, my laptop screen is brighter than my future. So a sense that she's not in the right positive mood. Monday, Tuesday, January the 29th into the 30th, we're now seeing more signs of distress. While Elisa continued sightseeing, her behaviour became increasingly erratic. She made confusing social media posts and appeared to be grappling with internal distress. This may have been influenced by irregular medical use, a fact later supported by toxicology results. Nevertheless, she pushed forward with her plans, wandering the downtown streets and taking photographs of local architecture. Now, this was Elisa's last post on January the 29th. I have arrived in La La Land, and there is a monstrosity of a building next to the place I am staying. We know now it's the Cecil Hotel. When I say monstrosity, mind you, I'm saying as in gaudy, but then again, it was built in 1928, hence the Art Deco theme. So yes, it is classy, but then, since it's LA, it went on crack. Fairly certain this is where Baz Luhrmann needs to film The Great Gatsby, The Great Gatsby being one of our favourite books. Again, we will deal with this later, but in the timeline and in this discussion, this was the last post from Elisa while alive. Yes, her Tumblr account would continue to post content she had set up to be posted long into 2013. This is another one of I'm not going to get into this now. These posts were preset and completed by Elisa during January 2013. Brian, is there anything you want to come in there, or do you want me to push on?
Yeah, it's just tough stuff there. Like, you know, she was in distress, in a vulnerable state, like, and it's hard reading there, like, you know. So she needed some help, I think, there, like.
Yeah,
there's
a real sense that, you know, particularly her mention, you know, of it's. When I read that post, you know, I've arrived in La La Land, and there's a man, and you know, and
yeah,
there's just maybe the hintest sense that she thought to herself, what the hell am I doing in this place? What have I got myself into here? As she more explored the area over the last couple of days, and she was starting to think, oh my God, where am I? What am I doing staying in this place?
Yeah,
and that's the sense I get from that post.
Yeah, I think it's like with mental health issues, like, as well, it's like if there is, if she was getting into a vulnerable state, things like this could, could exacerbate
Triggers,
things.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it will exacerbate things as well, like, and but I think she was kind of seemed to be aware of, how she was as well. But like, it's just, yeah, these things can
Yeah.
exacerbate things there as well, like,
Okay, so Wednesday, January the 31st. Now we're getting into the final confirmed sightings of Elisa Lam. Elisa visited a bookstore called The Last Bookstore, speaking with staff manager Katie Orphan, who later to detectives described her at the time as lively and very talkative, but also somewhat scattered in thoughts. She was outgoing, very lively, very friendly, while getting gifts to take home to her family. She was talking about what book she was getting and whether or not she would be getting it, and maybe it would be too heavy for her to carry around as she travelled. Elisa is now in a room on her own in the Cecil Hotel. Though not known at the time, police will later review CCTV footage from the hotel of two males handing her a box in the lobby late that afternoon, January 31st. They will discover in witness interviews that she had requested the delivery of books she had bought at the last bookstore because she was concerned about the weight. Presumably these were gifts and she wanted them packed away properly, and Katie rightfully said, "Look, we'll sort that out for you. Sure, you're only a stone's throw away. We'll drop them across to you when we have it sorted out." She appears later in the lobby behaving bizarrely with outstretched hands, witnessed by hotel staff claiming that she is, out loud, just a bit crazy and wants to be left alone. I want you to remember that bit when we move to the next CCTV footage. Back at the Cecil Hotel later that evening, she failed to call her parents. This prompted immediate concern from her family the following day, because it would be the second day she had not directly phoned them. Now, what happened that evening of January the 31st? We now have the elevator CCTV footage. We will never know the full events of this late afternoon, early evening, and what exactly happened. But it has led to the most bizarre footage of this case on CCTV. This sequence lasts 4 minutes, and it's the last known images of 21-year-old Elisa Lam. Before we watch it, I want to place certain facts forward that are important. Otherwise, the footage, as it did at the time, and this is the problem, and this is why I'm doing this now, opens avenues for wild speculation and conspiracy theories unfounded on facts. And that was the problem. This CC footage eventually entered the public domain, rightly or wrongly, and then it led to a whole spin. And without the next facts, you're not going to understand how this elevator footage maybe makes more sense. So first of all, we're going to watch the video insert, the elevator footage. Brian, I'll leave it to you if you want to make any comments on the footage after we see it.
Yeah, I think you just said it have to look at it on its. Look at the footage on its own terms there.
Yeah,
and just watch it, and
then we'll get into the Cecil Hotel history and maybe parse it out a bit more. But so here's the video. You watch it and place yourself back in 2013. This is the first time you've ever watched the video. You've never heard of Elisa Lam. You don't know anything about this case. Here's the footage. Okay, Brian. So yeah. Okay. So I don't know what we do. Do we put ourselves in the position of somebody seeing that the first time when it was released? We'll get more into the dates when it was released, and we'll speak more about that later. But as is what we have.
Yeah. Just take it on its own terms there, and we discuss
the ramifications later.
So on there. Yeah.
For context, the Cecil Hotel, the history and the layout, and we're going to have diagrams here, so some of this makes more sense, and we'll intersperse it through as I speak. So the hotel itself was opened in 1924, a grand, exquisite building of ornate architecture of, now this is important, listen to the words, story and floors are very different things, okay? So the architecture of 14 stories and was originally built for middle class guests. Quickly following the 1929 economic crash and depression, while the brick and marble opulence remained, lack of refurbishment and investment combined with a local community recovering into the 1940s and 50s and the emergence of Skid Row, it became a very different hotel by the 1960s and 1970s. And certainly by the 1980s and 90s, Skid Row became increasingly populated with transients following the LA dream or falling foul of hard times. As many as 10,000 homeless people lived within a 4-mile, 6-kilometre radius. It became a budget and long-term home for low-income people who would sometimes stay there as a home for months, even sometimes years. They had long-term stay guests. The hotel had several long-term residents there, and some of them were actually there decades. By the 2000s, even a premium room might cost as little as $85. Some long-term guests were paying as little as $400 a month. Naturally, close to Skid Row, the hotel was frequented by guests from the local area involved gangland, drugs, prostitution, and many forms of big and small-time criminality. Guests that stay there, and we're not doing explorations of this. Serial killer Richard Ramirez lived there in the 1980s. Serial killer Jack Unterweger murdered sex workers there in 1991 within the local area. Hotel general manager Amy Price, who was in the position from 2007 to 2017, recalled that there were 80 deaths at the hotel just in her time there, that the 10-year period she was there. It wasn't unusual. It was what it was, a low-budget hotel and often troubled residents. They could be ex-convicts out of jail, drug addicts, permanent rooms booked by dons and prostitutes, or just people formerly homeless, down on the luck and looking for a cheap place to stay.
Just to follow on from that last clause there, Mick, as well, that like, just to note, in a lot of these places as well, like, you know, where there's homelessness, like, they're not necessarily drug addicts or alcoholics or whatever. There's a lot of these people have mental health issues, and in America, a lot of them are ex-veterans as well, who've fallen on hard times, and, you know, so it's not necessarily people with the substance abuse problems. They're often people with mental health problems, and, you know, there's ex-veterans in the mix as well then. Like,
yeah. So by the time Elisa Lam arrived at the Cecil Hotel, there were efforts to revive the hotel's fortunes. The hotel was rebranding. 640 South Main Street, downtown LA, was to be called Stay at Main, but the Cecil name was hard to get away from. So much so, the hotel had two main entrances next to each other. So you walked in a main lobby entrance and you kind of went off either side, depending on what your booking was or where you were staying. So two separate entrances, lobbies. Above the lobby, floors 2 and 3 were long-term residents. Stay at Main had the 4, 5 and 6 floors, and the Cecil floors went upwards from 7 to 15 floors. Again, I want to emphasize floors. Please, people, don't come back to me about, you know, somebody said it was 15 stories with 20 stories. You know, don't get confused with stories and floors.
It kind of seems a bit daft in ways, because like you couldn't like
It's
you're
just
never going to get away from it. You're going to go like, because
I've
everybody, if you say the
yeah
state main, people say, "Where's that?" Oh, that's the place to Cecil. That
yeah
used to be,
yeah
so you're
yeah.
never going to get away from it that way, like
No, no,
It's
it's and
a strange
and
thing.
they never quite did. Although it is, I believe, modern now. It is now. The signs are still up, but it's now more commonly referred to as the Stay on Main Hotel. Now, the diagram will do the outtakes as we work through it.
And that's standard fare in America. No 13th floor.
Yes, that's standard fare. I don't know how common it is in, I don't know,
They have it a
the
bit.
Europe. It is a bit, and then I've stayed at hotels where it's been a 13th floor, and you go
Yeah,
whoa,
yeah, yeah.
But
And the other one is America. They count the bottom floor as the first floor, whereas
that's
in
the other
Europe
thing.
the other one is
We count it as ground floor,
ground
then the
floor
first
one.
floor is the
Yeah,
one above it. Yeah, so
yeah.
that's where, be careful about, that you're wrong there. That's what I'm saying. So hence the diagram. Okay, so to be clear to everybody, okay, you've got the lobby there, left side Stay on Main, as it was 2013, right side Cecil Hotel, above it what was called floor 2, floor 3, floor 4, and you can see that the Stay on Main floors were the 4, 5 and 6. Floor 2 was long-term residents, and you go all the way up then from 7 all the way to the top 15, forgetting no such thing as the 13th floor. So that's your diagram if you need to go back to reference it. Now, I'm going to go back to this picture. Okay, keep that in mind. There's a blue circle there. That's a tank. They are the 4 water tanks on the building. You might look at that building and you might say to yourself, oh, so the water tank's at the back. No, it's not at the back. As you look at the building from the front lobby, it's on the left side, but it's actually in the middle. This is hard to explain. If you think elevation wise, looking down as if you were in a drone looking down the building is actually shaped like a capital E. So think of it like that, and a bit in the middle, and there were 2 intersections in the middle. So think of it like a capital E. You can't see it on this side, but you will see it when we see views of the other side of the building. So that structure up there is an exit onto the roof where the blue circle is, and that just in front of it is where the tanks were. But that structure protruding out onto the rooftop is actually on the left side of the building, but is in the center left side of the building, if I'm explaining it properly. But I'll explain that when we see it more in other diagrams. Now, this is the front view of the hotel that you're seeing. Again, we'll do outtakes of this. You're looking at the lobby. You're looking at the 14 stories. In red there, you can see the external. We tend to, in Europe, not to be as familiar with external fire escapes. The fire escapes were there on that side, and those fire escapes ran through to the other side, literally directly opposite. The water tank itself, as you've seen from the 3D image, is over this side into the left top corner, but again, it's at the middle of the building. Okay, so again, I know this is difficult to visualize. So that's the front of the building. This is the rear of the building. Now flip it round and you go, yeah, now I get it. So the fire escape at the back is on the same side as it is on the front. You get me? Okay, so that's the rear of the building. Now the hotel had 2 elevators, one to the right and one to the left, intended to reflect the 2 lobbies, but they were still easily shared from the floors above. Outside of the tenant floors, most bookings online came through Stay at Main's online presence and agents. That's where Elisa booked. Elisa Lam clearly had no idea of the history and hotel setup when she booked. She just assumed she was getting a cheap budget hotel with hostel style sharing. Now, Elisa Lam was booked into room 506. That is a hostel sharing room at the time on the 5th floor of the Cecil. You can go back and look at the image and see exactly where that is. Now, diagrams we've done. Okay, Thursday, February the 1st, 2013. Elisa's hotel booking indicated that she was due to check out that morning, but never did appear at reception to complete the process. Her pre-booked itinerary would later show that she was due to travel again by Amtrak train to the final part of her trip. That was Santa Cruz, California. Now, over the next few days, literally next 6 days, the missing person investigation is launched. At this stage, David and Yina are already travelling from Vancouver down. They know something seriously wrong. When Elisa's family could not reach her, they contacted the LAPD and flew immediately to Los Angeles to assist in the search. Police officers interviewed hotel staff and searched her room, finding her belongings, including her bags, clothing, medication and other personal items. They also found the box of books she had delivered by the last bookstore. No signs of struggle or forced entry were present. LA officers used search dogs to examine the building, including the rooftop. The dogs did indicate one positive scent at the uppermost floor at a window to an outside emergency stairwell. Inspections were made of the rooftop area, but the dogs were unable to detect her scent beyond the window and anywhere near the tanks. Now, note, at this point detectives had not reviewed the CCTV footage, and their search focus was not specifically on the rooftop. They were assured all emergency door entry points to this area were alarmed, and they would have immediately triggered an audible alarm at reception down in the lobby to say, "Oh, hang on a second, somebody's using an emergency door, what's going on here?" and investigated it. Meanwhile, another smaller team of detectives within the 19 detective team were examining outside TV footage of bus and train stations to see if Elisa had made the trip from downtown LA onward to Santa Cruz. This quickly turned up nothing. February the 7th to the 13th, the search begins to expand beyond the hotel. Investigators reviewed the CCTV footage from the hotel. One recording from January the 31st captured Elisa entering and exiting an elevator repeatedly. So this is the point where they find that elevator footage. And she's pressing many buttons, stepping out and peering into the hallway and making unusual hand movements. The footage provided no evidence of another person's presence, but her erratic behaviour raised questions about her mental state. There are still hundreds of hours to review on the remaining CCTV footage, and detectives are now beginning to examine if Elisa perhaps met someone and left the hotel on the evening of January the 31st. External law enforcement officers, now alerted to Elisa's case across California, are coming up with nothing of the 21-year-old Canadian student. On February the 14th, ironically Valentine's Day, the elevator video is released. In hopes of generating leads, the LAPD publicly released the elevator footage. It quickly went viral. Millions watched and rewatched it, generating countless theories. Some believed she was hiding from someone, others believed she was hallucinating, while some speculated that unseen forces were involved. Internet users dissected every frame, debating her gestures, movements and expressions. Entire online communities, groups and channels began to emerge, covering solely this case on a daily basis. In hindsight, the elevator footage was a catastrophic mistake in the investigation. It only made sense if they were certain Elisa had left the hotel alone or in the company of someone. Now, detectives were overwhelmed with the response, most of it completely unhelpful, creating false leads and consuming time. Unknown to the public at the time, the detectives had found something else significant. on other CCTV hotel footage that they didn't make public. Elisa accepting the delivery of a box of books from 2 men in the lobby. They were located, interviewed and eliminated. Critically, having reviewed all available CCTV footage, eventually, and it took weeks for them to do this, detectives were now certain Elisa Lam had never left the hotel that fateful evening. February the 15th to the 18th, public speculation is intensifying. The hotel faced growing scrutiny as the elevator video spread internationally. Guests and online communities rightly began raising questions about the hotel security, the rooftop access and the building's past tragedies. Meanwhile, search efforts continued, but no additional evidence surfaced to support Elisa's actual leaving the hotel or arranging to meet anyone outside. Whatever happened to Elisa had to have happened within the hotel. She hadn't walked out the front door, nor had she left dead in any garbage dumpster from the hotel. But that meant, where exactly was Elisa then? Tuesday, February the 19th. Elisa Lam is found. It's not the outcome anybody wanted. And the events are all the more shocking. After guests complained of low water pressure and discoloured water, a hotel maintenance worker, Santiago Lopez, inspected the roof's 4 water tanks. One tank's hatch was clearly open, and this drew his attention. Inside, he discovered Elisa's body floating face up. She was naked, with her clothes submerged below in the water. Now, the tank hatches, despite what was reported at the time, they weren't hinged, flapping hatches. They simply, you lift them up and they're heavy. They weigh about 8 to 9 kilos, about, 18-20 pounds in American weights.
6.5 kilos is a stone.
So these are damn heavy things, to lift. You try to lift them, you need both hands to lift them. Police arrived quickly, and after cataloguing the scene, decided to drain the tank of water and cut a hole at the bottom so they could remove Elisa's body as carefully as possible. A new phase of the investigation began. Again, we'll do outtakes of the images seeing here. Now, Saturday, March the 9th, Elisa Lam was buried on March the 9th, 2013 at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Burnaby, Vancouver, at a private ceremony. The family still want answers from the police. Her inscription, perhaps appropriately, from another one of our favourite authors, Salman Rushdie. Our lives disconnect and reconnect, we move on, and later we may again touch one another, again bounce away. This is the felt shape of a human life, neither simply linear, nor wholly disjunctive, nor endlessly bifurcating, but rather this bouncy castle sequence of bumpings into and tumblings apart. The autopsy report. Brian, before I go on, is there anything you want to?
I know, it's just shocking. Shocking. Very, very sad, very tragic end to talented young lady's life there, and I think very, very sad for her, for family. I think that poor fellow who found the body as well must have been. I don't think that's something he'd be able to ever unsee either. I'd say, so very, very tragic.
Yeah. The autopsy report itself. Now, this came out about 4 months after Elisa Lam was found and buried. The autopsy report released. It was almost 4.5 to 5 months after Elisa's death, determined that she died of drowning. There were no indications of physical assault, no drugs, no alcohol found in her system, and no signs of struggle or defensive wounds that might suggest an assault. However, toxicology showed reduced levels of her prescribed medication, suggesting she may not have been fully medicated during her final days. The autopsy concluded that her bipolar disorder contributed significantly to the events leading to her death. How she accessed the rooftop and entered the tank remained uncertain, but authorities noted that the rooftop was reachable via unlocked doors or fire escapes. It was also disclosed that the 5th floor, that's where Elisa was staying, was not covered by CCTV. We would eventually learn that the infamous elevator footage was taken on the 14th floor. So you see it later opening on one floor. I think that's down below because of the orange carpet opening to stay on main carpet, and then the incident itself with her behaviour was on the upper 14th floor. There is no reason why Elisa should have been on that floor that evening. She'd been allocated 2 rooms. The first, the 506, and then later a single room on her own, 514, on the 5th floor within the Stay on Main booking franchise. That was floors 4, 5 and 6. Now, despite much criticism, the Cecil Hotel owners argued in court later that the fire doors were not locked, as again theories were put out, as per legal requirements in an emergency, but an alarm should have sounded in the reception area that evening if the doors were opened. Now, 2013 to 2015, following the discovery of their daughter's body, David and Elisa Lam filed a wrongful death case against the owners of the Cecil Hotel in 2013. Elisa's parents alleged negligence for failing to maintain a safe hotel environment, but a judge dismissed the case in 2015. The court ruled that the hotel could not be liable for Lam's accidental death, stating it was an unforeseeable event that occurred in the restricted area of the hotel, and on more than one occasion Elisa had been discovered by hotel staff in restricted areas of the hotel and warned that she was violating safety and guest policies. Again, we'll do an outtake on that if you want to pause and just maybe read it. This was one of the less, shall we say, salacious media coverage of it. Otherwise, media coverage of Elisa's disappearance was relatively modest until the elevator video release. Once it appeared online, the story transformed a global sensation. News outlets across the world reported on the mysterious elevator girl. Imagine being found dead tragically and being referred to as the mysterious elevator girl, often emphasizing the eerie nature of the footage rather than the real human being behind it. Internet communities, Reddit, YouTube, Tumblr and forums became hubs of wild and unfounded speculation. Users analysed her gestures, theorised about supernatural entities, and compared her movements to scenes from horror films. Some suggested she was evading an attacker. Others believed she was experiencing hallucinations. A few falsely accused individuals, we'll hear a bit more of that later, leading to harassment and serious reputational harm. The Cecil Hotel's grim history, suicides, murder and serial killers who once stayed there was eventually frequently invoked, shaping sensational narratives. Documentaries and television specials dramatised the case, sometimes skewing details for sheer entertainment value. Though media attention helped keep her case visible, it also overshadowed her humanity, amplifying mystery over understanding actual case facts. Brian, before we start our...
I think you summed your last couple of lines there, summed that up spot on there, Mick. I think the phrase sensational is the key there. That's what happened again. I think your last bit there, what you say, media attention kept the case visible, it also overshadowed humanity, and that's the key to it there. That this thing became about thrills for other people and all this supernatural crankpotism and all this sort of sensation around this, and at the back of it all you've got this poor girl who died a horrible tragic death, and that was forgotten. She was forgotten. It just turned into this nonsense. very, very sad on top of everything else that this happens then,
Yeah, I know. I mean, how many cases have we come across like that?
Yeah, the
But
victim is lost,
subsequently, years later, like, and you'd think this is back in 2013.
Yeah.
Did we not learn anything from this case? Well,
I know.
clearly, we didn't. We learned fuck all from it.
And this is the thing, like her parents and her sister, who lived in the next a couple of over the border in Canada,
Yeah.
had to read all this crap, and listen to all this crap, ongoing for all that time afterwards as well, So when they were, they're grieving their daughter, they're trying to get answers, and then you've got anything factual then is just tossed aside. You've all
Or watered down or lost in the more scurrilous, contemplation of the case.
So the victim was lost, and the family were lost in it all as well, and the quest for truth.
Okay, so we'll move to our conclusions.
Yeah.
Okay, so Elisa Lam's case endures because it sits at the intersection of tragedy, mystery, and the collective imagination of a global audience. Her death sheds light on mental health, the vulnerabilities of travelling alone, and the systematic issues within low-cost urban accommodation like the Cecil Hotel. While the official cause of death is accidental drowning, the circumstances leading to her presence on the rooftop and inside the tank, it still remains ambiguous. These unanswered questions allow speculation to flourish. And more often than not, that speculation was promoted by online case fanatics who were entirely unfamiliar with both unreleased witness depositions and released information on the case. When this case blew up on social media, particularly in the years 2013 to 2016, there was still much coverage ignoring basic details already public that would have cut through the nonsensical conspiracy theories, and namely the autopsy report that came out 4 to 5 months after, the witness statements and later depositions by maintenance workers, Santiago Lopez, the security guard statements from Burbank Studios, the Conan O'Brien recording, family medical disclosures by Elisa's sister Sarah, witness statements by hotel staff and their depositions from January the 28th to 31st and later in the wrongful death suit, witness deposition statements from Elisa's roommates provided in the wrongful death lawsuit, the public abuse and hunting of musician Pablo Morbid Vergara, manufacture and installation checks made on the elevator, and that note on the detailed hold button feature used by staff. We haven't discussed it in detail. Watching that footage, it was minutely analysed, and we learned that there was a feature that hotel staff were aware of, where if you pressed the bottom row of buttons, the centre button, it was the hold button. Staff knew about it. They knew just pressing it it held the doors and briefly, but if it was held for several seconds, it would hold the lift for 2 minutes. Staff were aware of that. Maintenance staff, cleaning staff that went to rooms that maybe ran out into a hallway with a trolley with food on it and wanted to hold the hotel, because the last thing they wanted is the trolley going down in the lift because some clown called it from floor 1. So they knew how it worked, and it would seem that somehow Elisa, in her frantic movements she engaged that 90-second to 2-minute button, which is why the lift appears to be, it's not malfunctioning, it's doing what it was programmed to do, and staff were aware of that. Now, the case also demonstrates the power and danger of viral media. The elevator video, stripped of context, became a canvas onto which viewers projected fear, fascination, and conspiracy. The internet's obsession overshadowed Elisa as a person, reducing her at times to a symbol rather than a human being within a story, her struggles and dreams. There is an old adage that fits this case perfectly in social media viral times. Knowing a little about something can sometimes make you more dangerous than knowing absolutely fuck all and nothing about it. When I look at the world of Elisa Lam in 2013 and her Tumblr blog, I'm somewhat reminded of the case of Gabby Petito. In reality, when they both first went missing, no one knew who they were. Bluntly, no one gave a fuck who they were. No one gave a toss about them. Let's be blunt. The media presented their cases to you into your lap. A gripping emotional story and a roller coaster you could come along with them on. They were only too happy to take you along for the ride. Go missing, have a blog, will travel, and you're famous. Where were you all before Elisa and Gabby first went missing? Answer: carrying along with your own lives, completely oblivious. For Elisa, just like Gabby, her life is defined and experienced through her eyes, not yours. Not what your place is on their shoulders years later as a poor, tragic soul. In this case, conspiracy theories were already way out of control before the results of Elisa's autopsy were made public. By then, no one appeared interested that she clearly stopped or limited the intake of a prescribed and critical medication. No one stopped to think why the elevator appeared to function or not as it did in that 4-minute CCTV footage. No ghosts in the machine were involved. Later study of the CCTV would clearly show Elisa depressing the hold button for several seconds, initiating an inbuilt sensor sequence used by staff, bellboys, maintenance and cleaners to hold the lift in place on the floor to offload or unload equipment, carts, multiple luggage for anything up to 90 to 120 seconds. Instead of stopping to ask maintenance worker Santiago Lopez what he actually found in evidence, many simply leapt on an erroneous assumption that the so-called tank hatch was closed based on an uninformed LAPD officer during a local USA Network interview where he claimed it was closed. Santiago Lopez never once stated the hatch was closed in his police reports on finding Elisa's body. Elisa, from all communications and activity, appeared to be doing well on her arrival from San Diego to LA. It would appear soon after the 3-day period, toxicology proved the significant absence of levels of medication in her system that should have been present. There are no arguments here. Either Elisa was missing doses or not taking her medication at all. Her medical bottles from her room clearly indicated from last pharmacy dispense that she was not taking her medication. There was a lead up to her disappearance. It's on record. At Burbank Studios, during a recording of the Conan O'Brien show, she insisted that notes she wrote should be passed to Conan and his guest Sanjay Gupta, an American neurosurgeon, medical reporter and writer. You can understand how Lisa might have been fascinated with Sanjay Gupta, a very well thought out guy in his field. Elisa was going through the same practice back in the Cecil Hotel with her roommates that same evening, leaving curious notes about what she really thought of them. Elisa had a history of attending recorded broadcasts for Canadian TV. She was asked to leave the Burbank studio, having been deemed a security risk. For obvious reasons, I'm not going to get into details about Sarah Lam, her only sibling, has disclosed many years after her sister Elisa's death. What I will disclose is that her Chinese parents were not by any means fluent English speakers and struggled with what was going on from the moment they flew to LA. Sarah has also been very open about episodes Elisa experienced as she entered her teenage years. Elisa's need to find balance with a medication and the reasons her parents were less forthcoming about Elisa's mental health issues, even after she went missing. We have episodes of Elisa beyond the elevator. This is the problem, people stuck in a conspiracy with the case. They cannot see beyond their own conspiracy and that other evidence exists. Elisa was witnessed by several staff members in the corridors and hotel lobby behaving oddly. On at least 2 occasions, she was asked to leave an area of the hotel she was not supposed to be in, and off limits to guests, all prior to her initial disappearance. Hotel staff invited under statement to view the elevator footage, all state that she behaved the same odd way at times on her own in the corridors and lobby. Those long outstretched hands and finger gestures and sidesteps. Her two roommates immediately felt uncomfortable in the three sharing hostel room setup. They told LAPD that Elisa would not go out in the evening, and when they came home she would lock the door from the inside so that they could not get in, and they would call to reception hotel staff so they could get in. She would shout out at them that she needed a password for them to get in. Then the notes started the following day. This was all the behaviour going on. Perhaps one of the most disturbing aspects of this case is the online attention and nonsense that followed. Countless online discussion communities would claim or attempt to suggest that the roommates didn't exist. They didn't exist, apparently. And the hotel, in tandem with LAPD, invented these two female guests despite their sworn depositions being provided in the wrongful death lawsuit. The roommates' identities were never made public. Of course they weren't made public. Look at what happened. Because of the privacy reasons and the online smears and abuse witnesses and hotel staff had already been subject to. Around the second or third week of the investigation, a musician from Mexico kept cropping up in this missing person case via the same online communities. Death metal musician Pablo Vergara was targeted by online case sleuths trolls because some music video he did just might resemble the case of Elisa. The edgy death metal musician is the guy what done it, and over several years his life and career were completely destroyed, and in reaction his music and videos were taken down from multiple platforms, the same platforms that celebrated and pushed this conspiracy crap. In truth, Pablo Vergara did stay at the Cecil Hotel, but 1 full year earlier than Elisa. But hey, those details didn't matter then to the conspiracy trolls with their nailed down theories. His lifestyle, music and behaviour didn't fit with their own traditional morals and values. Happy in their own online space with freedom and anonymity, they went after him with an absolute ruthless vengeance, calling for him to be arrested, hung, burned in hell and murdered. Following an attempted suicide, Pablo resurrected his career after studying at the New York Film Academy as an actor and became an award-winning filmmaker. But hey, the two guys from the last bookstore, they got it as well. Doing a favour for their manager and Elisa Lam, they were also subjected to the same abusive vilification, even after police stated they had been eliminated and were never suspects. The internet sleuths were using the crystal balls, their numeracy, the Illuminati meanings of rooms 506 and 514. Work it out, combine the numbers and you'll get something. How the fucking stars magically align for them, rejecting science and the way they might look at you in those videos and images to try and convict innocent people on their precious social media platforms. This is what happens when true crime channels and communities turn into crime-solving platforms based on sheer conspiracy and wild speculation driven by reactive emotion. You can smell the digital stench of bullshit and bias. So what happened to Elisa? Looking back, Elisa's death highlights critical lessons, the importance of mental health awareness, particularly for young adults navigating independence, the need for improved safety measures in hotels, and the responsibility of media creators, including true crime storytellers, to separate fact from sensationalism. Ultimately, Elisa Lam's story is not defined by the mystery surrounding her death, but the life she lived. She was a thoughtful, creative young woman on a journey of self-discovery whose memory deserves compassion and truth. Elisa Lam had no reason to be on the uppermost floor of the Cecil Hotel on the evening of January 31st because she was staying on the 5th floor. From her visit to the last bookstore to the event downstairs in the lobby later that afternoon, her behaviour was becoming increasingly odd and unhinged. Multiple staff and guests presented evidence to this to the LAPD investigators in the days after her disappearance. CCTV backed up those witness assertions and experiences. The autopsy backed up those assertions with the lack of any defence wounds and the lack of expected medical levels in her system. Yet, initially, the LAPD ignored what was staring at them in the face and convinced themselves, like so many, that there must have been a third party involvement long before they ever found Elisa's body. They believed she had left the hotel and perhaps come to harm downtown. Ironically, their biggest mistake was probably the release of that elevator CCTV footage prior to the autopsy report results, and not undertaking a proper and thorough search of the Cecil Hotel building, bottom to top. Their initial rooftop search was nothing more than a cursory walk around. At the time, they believed Elisa had left the hotel, possibly to meet someone. That was their working theory. They had not thoroughly eliminated the possibility Elisa was still at the hotel. The LAPD allowed the concurrent Christopher Donner rampage at the time in LA to distract them from which significantly downsized staff and resources into the Elisa Lam investigation very early on. I think that's why it took them so long to get through countless amounts of CCTV footage. Elisa had two entry points to the rooftop, one through a small upper stairwell and the other through one of the upper story windows and out onto a fire escape ladder. The four high water tanks, while scalable via ladders, navigating through a tight area of ground feeder pipes at foot level would have required agility. While not a feat to a maintenance worker, it would have required agility combined with determination for someone unfamiliar with that rooftop area. Nevertheless, it is where Elisa's body was found and stripped naked. Could there have been third party involvement? Okay, if so, it would take someone with knowledge of access points on the rooftop area. You would have to look at agile and healthy long-term guests at the hotel, or a staff worker. But even considering that scenario, how do you coerce or force Elisa from inside the upper floors of the building, navigate window exits, emergency exits, stairwells, a tricky series of ladders, then unclothe her and get her into the water tank? You would at least need Elisa conscious and mobile. It seems impossible to contemplate such a forced abduction if Elisa was already incapacitated on one of the upper floors. You would have to carry her body somehow to the rooftop and then haul it up to get to the water tanks. Why would you even bother stripping her body of clothing? All of this unnoticed by other guests and hotel CCTV. This scenario is just not believable. Whether you believe Elisa's disappearance had third party involvement or not, I think it's far more believable that she got to that water tank conscious by her own actions or under maybe duress from someone else. Fair enough. I cannot rule out the latter, but we must not invent mysterious third parties unknown and where there is not a shred of evidence for such a coerced act of abduction. It is possible Elisa entered the rooftop because she was fleeing someone. Absolutely, it's possible. Except we have no evidence for that. But rather, she could have believed she was fleeing from someone. I also know some are going to closely examine the blog posts and understandably wonder if this was some final pre-planned journey for Elisa, much like the case of Peter Bergman we covered, by her own choice. Elisa had her own highs and lows, but I don't accept that this was some form of ending and deliberate decision pre-planned, a means to an end. I just feel the entire trip was simply a bridge too far for Elisa, a trip that only increased the sudden highs and lows, and without close family monitoring, her medication, alone and thousands of miles from home, her own demons and ghosts within took over. Brian.
Yeah, Mick. Just back to I'm not going to dive into this one, but I think, those trolls are a disgrace, just totally spineless individuals fitting things to their theories, and it's just disgusting what happened to that guy. Obviously we've already said what happened with Elisa, her memory, her family, and all that is disgusting. What happened to this musician was as
Pablo,
well
yeah.
pure. It's like this kind of setting out to lynch this fella.
And
Virtually
I
and
think an
physically
awful
again,
lot
like,
of it was simply because he did death metal.
yeah,
He was very edgy. He did
yeah.
really
They
very
are edgy, like
stuff
that's what they
that,
do, like
very uncomfortable video, very unnerving. He got really but because they didn't like that, it didn't fit their moral narratives, he must have done it.
But it's a bit like that kind of, they make connections then. Like it's a bit like that kind of thing with Patricia Cornwell saying, "Oh, she solved the Jack the Ripper case because a picture she saw, one of the Walter Sickert pictures looked a bit like one of the crime scenes or something like that, along those lines. Like, and it's just this kind of stuff. It's not evidence. It's not, so like it's the similar thing here. Like, but I mean, that guy was. He's lucky people didn't respond to that call to do whatever they wanted to do to him as well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
So. But I think that's the standard trolls, like heroes in their own bedroom and sitting there, they're jocks in their bedroom. Like, they're kind of they think they're the business, like, but anyway, they're not worth any more airtime or brain space there. Like, I think, fair summary there. Like, otherwise, I think looking at those tanks physically, I think the only way to access them really is like where the maintenance guy is there going up the back. You've got the fence there. That's the only real way up on top of them, like, because they look to be, I mean, assuming your man is about 6 foot odd there, they look to be between 8 and 9 feet tall there.
I think they're over 10 foot tall,
yeah,
and they're also quite close together. So imagine somebody, a third party, trying to drag, or fight with somebody up there to get them up there, or somebody even unconscious and carry these tanks are literally about 1.5 to 2 foot apart and get up a ladder, with a body.
The only way is up that fence from what I could see, and the other side was, remember, she the cause of death was drowning, so she was alive when she went to the tank, like, as well, so it's it wasn't a case of she was killed downstairs and dropped into the tank. She was alive when she went in, drowned. There would have been water in the lungs. That's it.
And I've never believed the theory that she went in the tank and then panicked and tried to take off her clothes. You tried out doing that when you okay, maybe you get your jacket off, you get your socks off, you get your shoes off, you get your sandals off. This isn't like sitting on the edge of the bed where you're stripping for the night, like, on a warm day. Like, are you serious? Like, those clothes went in there before she went in there. And the only way I think that happens is, okay, you can argue there's a third party to put them in there first, or is it not more logical that Elisa put those clothes in there first and then went in after them?
And she was floating face up as well, like, so it's kind of, so that's the other side of it, that, like, if you're got, it wouldn't have been that, it mightn't necessarily be that neat if she was just slung in there, like, either, so I it's
well, in fairness, you can argue to it, a body that goes in there, you panic, you die, you drowned, the body eventually will sink. It then starts to, I won't get into the details, it starts to bloat, and then it does come to the surface. So I can kind of understand why it would come back up, face up, but to draw any conclusion from that there was a third party or there wasn't is just nonsense.
And there wasn't it wasn't some criminal mastermind evading all the CCTV footage and so on either, like, so it's very, very, very disturbing, and very sad, like, it's just so I don't think there's much more to say about that, really. And I think as well, I mean, Peter Bergman case different, the guy was dying, like,
I didn't bring it. I was conscious of, if this was Elisa by her own hand, it reminded me sadly of that case that, for whatever reasons, somebody decides that, this is it,
I suppose people can draw I mean, I think the Frida Kahlo quote, I hope the exit was joyful and I hope never to return, as well.
There's some very unnerving quotes.
It's unnerving because Frida Kahlo's was an open thing, like, there was some argued that she died by
Yeah.
suicide. Others argued it was the what took her in the end. Like, so that was kind of an open thing there as well. Like, so there was sort of almost a parallel there that it was left open there as well. Like, but wouldn't be reading too much into it. But it was that was that quote there. People could read too much into that as well. Like, but I mean, she was in a state of being up and down there as well, because I mean there was a lot of positivity then up and down there as well. It was the nature of disorder, the bipolar disorder, so I don't think we'll ever get the full.
No, I think we have what we have, and people will, I'm sure in 20 years' time, we'll still have the same, clowns trying to argue the case of, that it was a conspiracy, that the hotel staff were involved in it, that the LAPD were involved in it, maybe even the family were involved in it. You're always going to get those shenanigans.
We kind of the what, the where, and half of the whole, like, but the rest of it, then the remaining part of the whole, and the why, or in the unlikely event there was another who there, is kind of, we're not going to get that done, like.
We can never 100% eliminate that, but again, we have no evidence of that. So what
so
do you want to invent it?
No, go off the evidence. That's it.
Yeah.
Just enough bloody invention, like, with all this stuff.
Okay.
So I mean, imagine, something I know I'm repeating myself now. Imagine now, Mick, if all of those people, all these morons now in these online communities, and all these, like I said, guys in their jocks in their bedrooms, in front of their computer screens. Imagine if all these people now put an effort into collaborating to try and find out what happened. Imagine if they all put the effort into that rather than what they actually did there, like,
Yeah. Okay, that is our timeline. Elisa Lam, thank you for joining us on Radio Spoil for this particular timeline.
Sorry, Mick, just to say as well, rest in peace, Elisa Lam.
Yeah, rest in peace, Elisa. Let you know when our next community piece is on for Radio Spoil Insider. That's probably going to be our next one. I think realistically at this stage, we need a break next week. So we're going to take a break next week. And then we're hoping to come back with a Radio Spoil Insider edition in early December. But for now, from me and from Brian, God bless and take care, everyone.
All the best, folks. Take care.